PhD from Savitribai Phule, Pune University, and has been a faculty member at the Institute of Rural Management, Anand. He has also worked with Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation and GTZ New Delhi for several years. He is also a visiting faculty at IIM Udaipur and works with many NGOs in honorary positions. Currently, he is leading a year-long research on growth and management challenges faced by social enterprises. As all of you must have seen in our promotions, Professor Kanitkar taught us managerial analysis and communication, as well as strategic management. He has played roles of coordinator for induction fieldwork, as well as played a key role with the general management program at IRMA, the ETDC, and has been associated with much of the academic research and conferences conducted at IRMA then. And of course, we're going to listen to a few very interesting stories today. To facilitate the discussion, we have with us Salila Patkar from PRM 16. Salila worked with the NGO Myrada between 1997 and 2008 and returned to her hometown in Coorg, Karnataka in 2009 to work as a part-time farmer. She also volunteers with local organizations in ecological restoration, especially of landslide-affected farmlands in Kodagu. She is currently supporting a translator of Hatha Yoga texts by typing the manuscripts in Kannada. She has an MSc in Development Management from LSE and a PG Diploma in Yogic Science. Before we begin, we would also like to thank Arun Malik of PRM 15 for joining us in our test run and sharing his precious memories about Professor Ajit. I now welcome Professor Kanitkar once again, and over to you, Salila.
Thank you very much, Shilpa. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Salila.
Thank you. Namaste to everyone, and welcome again to this sixth episode. I'm really fortunate today that in the midst of a red alert weather event, I'm still able to participate in the event. We've had five episodes so far, and in all of them, we were behaving like young PRM, students or whatever. Professor Balaji will get angry if I say student, but young participants, and trying to dig into what our faculty did and how they looked at us and whatever happened. So that privilege is removed for this particular episode. We thought with Professor Kanitkar, we'll explore a few other things where we are no longer that young participant, So the focus this time will be, we will try to get behind the scenes of actually IRMA working on building knowledge that is relevant to its mission, and how the IRMA experience leaves an imprint in the work that we carry forward. I welcome Professor Kanitkar and all the listeners today to this session. And like all good things, Amul, IRMA's faculty come in family packs. And so we have amidst us Dr. Jyoti Kanitkar. Ma'am, you're a sports psychologist, if I'm right.
Yes, I am a sports psychologist, but I am also a clinical psychologist.
Also, okay. So there's something we can do with you again, a long session later on probably.
On mental health,
and,
yes.
Who we do not have in the family pack today is the son. Parth.
He is here.
He is not.
Is he logged on?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay. Sorry, I don't have everyone's screen. So Parth was once an Anandalai boy, if I'm right?
He was for 2 years.
He was. Yes. But he's now working as a resource mobilization officer at ILO in Geneva. So welcome, Parth. And okay, fun fact. Professor Kanitkar and Dr. Jyoti won the most compatible couple in a quiz. That's what we got to know from Arun Malik. So wonderful. We were not part of that event, but I'm sure it must have been fun indeed.
It was fun, yes.
Welcome, Professor Kanitkar. But before we deep dive into the session with you, we will take a few moments with ma'am. And ma'am, you had a few interesting things to say about the campus in particular. About how you could not enjoy the campus as much as you would have liked it. And probably that you use certain facilities much better than the students did. So
Oh, yeah,
could
yeah.
I ask
That I
you
must
to
say.
tell us a few things about your most significant experiences in campus? Thank you.
I don't know where to start. Actually, when Ajit took this job, and I was a bit worried because Anand is like a small place, and I had never lived in a small place. Pune was always a big thing, and then Ahmedabad. So I wonder how it would be living on a campus and all that. तो मैंने सोचा यार बोर हो जाऊंगी and PhD मेरा कैसे complete होगा. And he said only one thing, that Jyoti, you will like the house. So all my things, negative things went away. And the first thing I fell in love with was the house, the flat that we were given. It was such a beautiful thing, and I had a big garden to make and lawn, and there was a huge lawn opposite our house. And Pat was just 2 years old, so I thought, this boy is going to have fun, and he did have fun in on the campus because every house had somebody of his age. So there was a big group of friends for him. So yeah, that was good. I mean, first impression, such a greenery, and after Ahmedabad, Anand is like heaven. Ahmedabad was a dry and substandard city, and suddenly Anand is like green. खेती है वहाँ, फूल है, पानी है, beautiful घर है. Apart from that, I enjoyed two things more. Cycling. I used to do a lot of cycling. और उससे मेरा वेट भी कम रखा था, जो पुनः आके बढ़ गया. And I used to take my son on the back seat, carrier पे, and we used to go round and round and round cycling. One more thing I learned from Mrs. Phansalkar, and that is badminton. I was always a player, but I had never played badminton till then. So Bharati Phansalkar, she taught me badminton. So lots of sport happening, and me and Ajit being both of us players, we would always be there like, let us go for badminton, let's play table tennis. ये लड़के क्या खेल रहे हैं, basketball खेल रहे हैं, so let us go for that. So sport is another thing. And for my PhD, what I found is I used to sit under a tree and write my thesis. It was unbelievable. I would just pick up everything, cross the road opposite, lawn पे जाती थी, and there were huge trees. I would just sit down, and I could work there for 3 hours at a straight, then come back and again go back. So, I mean, I was very lucky that I found such a beautiful place to write my thesis. It was not easy क्योंकि data collection आनंद में नहीं हो सकता था. I used to do a lot of to and fro to Pune and Anand. That was a bit strenuous. The other thing, like you said, I think I used it more than you people in the library. Because like in दोनों को मैं भेजती थी, एक को office और एक को school, and then I would run to the library. And it was so peaceful, it was so beautiful. I really enjoyed that. और ये वो library की और एक अच्छी चीज हो गई. Like we used to take our son in the evening there, and he too used to see the coffee table books that we had in the library. और उससे उसको भी इतना he really became very fond of reading, and he reads a lot now. I mean, always he has read a lot. और उसका school तो बहुत ही अच्छा था. I think it is better if you ask him if he is still there. You can ask him if he remembers anything. So on day one itself, he fell in love with his teacher, Lakshmi teacher. और इतना भी नहीं रोया, तो मुझे बहुत दुख हुआ कि अरे ये लड़का मुझे छोड़ के जा रहा है और रो नहीं रहा. तो so that was the effect of school on him. Maybe I should say, do I have a minute?
Yes, please.
Okay. Maybe that's the last thing I should say here. After approximately 2 years, though we were quite young, 33 ऐसे कुछ थे हम लोग. At night after dinner, we would take our cycle, old one, पार्क को बिठाते थे साइकिल पर, और हम दोनों वॉक करके we used to go to the gate and come back. तो वो जो रास्ता था ना, so there is a मोड़, वो रास्ते पे एक मोड़ है, उसका नाम हमने philosophical मोड़ ऐसे दिया था, क्योंकि वहां आके हम सोचने लगते थे, यार हम क्या कर रहे हैं, हमें जिंदगी में क्या करना है, आगे जाके क्या करेंगे. So I think that mode is still there, philosophical mode. और पिछले साल जब मैं आई थी तो उस टाइम भी हम गए थे, तो तब जो philosophical mode हम ढूंढ रहे थे तो अब भी ढूंढ रहे. So it has not gone away after 30 years. So that's it.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And please stay on while we spend some time with Professor Kanikar. Without much ado, Professor, I think my batch, we missed you in class. Actually, we didn't get to see you. You had left by the time we joined. But we do know of you after you left IRMA. So in that sense, you never really went out of circulation, except you were no longer faculty at that time. So for those people who are watching this for the first time, Professor Kanikar has spoken about what led him to IRMA and the things he had to learn and unlearn to be part of it. That's part of our teaser, so do look at it. It's on Facebook, and if Lisa sent it some other ways, then it's available there. What was interesting from our pre-talk discussion was all the background work you were involved in, which probably as students, it wouldn't have struck us very much. And so let me come straight to the big issue here. The World Trade Organization is the current regime. And in the early 90s, the Dunkel draft was the precursor. And so you were part of the team that studied its implications. And that was an interesting thing you told us. And I think more of us would really benefit from knowing that experience you had in IRMA and what came of it, and probably how it's contributed to your thinking and work eventually. So we'll go straight into this.
Yeah. Thank you, Salila, Jai Padma, JP, and Lisa, and all others. Pleasure to be here. You have titled this discussion as heart-to-heart talk. So if there are a number of places in the country where I have left a part of my heart. If there is something that a heart can be divided, and Anand and IRMA is certainly that one major destination where I also left a large part of my heart, and I continue to sort of cherish the fond memories, short memories, but I continue to cherish those memories even 25-30 years are over. Actually, this working group that we had formed was one interesting way of keeping the intellectual life on the campus active. And many of you would know Professor Raja and Professor Balaji is here. We have this very interesting concept called TAS, Thursday Afternoon Seminar Series. Because that time you didn't have big connectivity. You didn't have big number of vehicles coming to Anand. Anand was a small town at that point in time, 91, 95, 1995, early years of the city growing into a mega township now. And therefore, you needed to have some mechanism to sort of churn the intellectual climate within the community. And of course, this was not aimed at that. But around that time, there was a massive discussion happening around the WTO. All of you would recall that 1991 was a major watershed event for the country when this LPG under Prime Minister Narasimha Rao at that time and Finance Minister Manmohan Singh had all the reforms had started taking place, and liberalization of trade and services and industry were a part of that whole package. And we were observing those while we were in IRMA doing our respective teaching and training and research. And then there was a strong argument that this is not going to help the country, especially in terms of liberalization of agriculture. Now there are interesting connections. The recent ordinances that the present government have talked about, many people are saying that it's a slight digression, but I will sort of repeat that here. Many people are saying that this is the moment for agriculture, the way 1991 was the moment for industry and trade and economy. But there were strong arguments against that. And then we thought that it's time to study. So myself, Professor Thomas, Professor Sukhpal, some of you might recall Professor Johnson, we started studying that declaration. WTO had not come into being. It was still called Dunkel draft, the person who actually wrote that draft. And then we invited, so we prepared working papers on that. So the idea was not just to organize event and invite someone, organize a talk and give bouquet of flowers and then bye-bye. We thought that we also need to understand what that event was, what are the implications for that. We had at least 3 such workshops in a span of 1 year. Professor Tushar was the director and he wholeheartedly supported this activity. We had Professor B.B. Bhattacharya, the Vice Chancellor of JNU at that point in time. We have the Gene Campaign lead person, Dr. Sahai. And then we have a couple of other resource persons. And so the pattern was that we would present our working paper, first 30-40 minutes, followed by panel members sharing their comments. It would be a half-a-day event. And we had 3 such events. Now you would ask what happened beyond the events. I think that kind of an understanding of looking around the economic events that are happening, how are they going to impact us as institution, impact us not as IRMA, but impact farmers, cooperatives, cooperative institutions, the entire economy and the rural poor. That's the focus of IRMA. I think that thought process was extremely important when we were in IRMA. Ours was a small effort, I must admit, looking back. Some of our working papers got published in EPW. We got ourselves patting on the back. Yeah, well done, well done. But more than that, I think this awareness about the macro events happening, its connection to our economic activities and our thinking on that. I would think that that was a major contribution, at least in terms of my personal growing. We worked together very well, 4 or 5 of us. Every day we would spend some time. We did background reading. That time internet was not much available, but we managed a good show. So that was a little bit about this working group on Dunkel draft. 3 seminars that we organized. A good audience, about 100 faculty members, our neighboring institution colleagues, students would come in. We would have discussion in ETDC, and it went on for about a year. Yep. Salila?
Yes, yes. That was interesting because I'd like you to elaborate a little bit on other things also that happened. You spoke about knowledge production relevant to IRMA's context. This is one of them. In a very taking a very broad issue of the Dunkel draft and looking at how things actually pan out in the field, but also things like developing teaching cases and such things. You know, there was a very interesting talk about making the learning within IRMA relevant to the context in which the participants would eventually go and do their jobs or and whatever. So how would you give us some clues on what were the things that happened?
I think IRMA in the initial years, I'm not aware of last couple of years, but in the initial years we had quite a heavy emphasis on bringing real life situations into classroom through a case study or through a management case format. And many of the senior faculty members who were right from the beginning with IRMA were FPMs or PhDs of IIM Ahmedabad, Professor Raja, Professor Sanjeev, Professor Balaji, Professor Pratap Reddy, you had Professor Srini from finance. So in a way, they sort of help IRMA, and Professor Tushar, of course, they sort of help IRMA to sort of transplant, if I may use the word, the case methodology into a rural management context. And I think I was fortunate to sort of be part of that journey. So for example, I clearly remember one induction fieldwork I did with PRM 12 or PRM 13, I'm not sure. We went to a village in Panetha. The village name was Panetha in Bharuch district. Couple of boys, I don't remember, it was only boys group, girls were inducted and placed separately in other villages wherever facilities were there. So this Panetha had a very interesting cooperative of banana growers. And then we of course stayed in the cooperative office. Ground floor was the office. First floor was the kind of a small guest room come stay room. And then we did the field work there. And on the basis of that field work of about a week, I wrote a case study on this banana growers cooperative called Panetha Vegetable Fruits and Growers Cooperative. Now a simple decision that the cooperative managers were struggling at that time. Huge production of banana, fertile land, plenty of water, active members. You are in the Bharuch Surat belt, so you have Surat and Ahmedabad market and Mumbai market nearby, but you are you are producing bananas, and bananas are facing big competition from what one is getting from Maharashtra, which is basically the Dhule Jalgaon belt, the northern Maharashtra belt. And then prices would crash, and all this story that we hear even in 2020, ups and downs in perishable prices. And this cooperative was struggling or had an idea of tying up with a industry in Surat to make banana puree. Banana puree, 1992, this cooperative was exploring the idea. And there was a huge discussion happening in this cooperative, pros and cons, whether we would get the right price or whether it is better to send it by transport to transport it by train to Delhi and so on. And we were silent listeners because we were all silent listeners. But it was an interesting case lead. The point I am describing in detail is that we brought that case to the teaching. It got published in Vikalpa, the IIM Ahmedabad quarterly magazine. I don't know whether that is taught. Now, cases need not be also on observed situations. Cases also could be based on what one is seeing outside. Now, that's the time I wrote a case based on completely secondary information about cryogenic engine. Cryogenic engine and the choice that ISRO was facing in terms of Russia abandoning its decision to sell cryogenic engine into the country, and whether the country should make its own cryogenic engine or country should sort of get it from Kazakhstan or some other European country. Now, I had no access to VSSU or Russia or cryogenic engine, but I had some exposure to Trivandrum and I had some exposure to VSSC. So based on completely secondary information published in newspapers, I wrote this on this ISRO case. And likewise, we had an interesting project, Professor Raja and Professor Balaji would remember. There was a project that we did for the World Bank, which was in terms of cooperatives and capital formation. Cooperatives and capital formation. IRMA did that project for about 6 months for the World Bank, I believe. Now, there was a massive field work. Some of us went to Maharashtra because I was comfortable with Marathi. Others went to other states, linguistic as well as regional diversity. And there was a tons and tons of information that came as a part of the consultancy project. But I recall huge number of cases were written based on those field experiences. And this is, I think, I did a book actually. We had this VOLAG-MAC program, and there we had participants from NGOs. And then I used to spend every day 2-3 hours in the evening with some of these managers coming from voluntary agencies. And that led to an edited version, Cases in Management of VOLAGs, Voluntary Agencies and Cooperative. Subsequently, International Cooperative Alliance in Delhi published that. So essentially, that teaching material development became a kind and case studies which brought one close to the reality. Reality came into the classroom and students were probably abreast of what's happening in the field, obviously through learning the cases. But again, as students, many of you would struggle to get up at 8:55 in the morning, and there would be obviously quizzes announced by Sriram at 1 minute to 9. And there will be class participation, which would be a kind of a tyranny to many of you. And therefore, some of you would not read the cases, but make sure that you make the right noise by raising a hand and get some brownie points on class participation. So as a faculty, many of us, including me, also got used to this wisdom of students as practiced in the classrooms. But it was fun. It was fun to sort of teach through a case methodology in the classroom, and I could sort of use that still. That has helped me subsequently as well.
Okay. So now that you've spoken about the satisfaction that came out of developing all these materials, in general, what do you think has been the most satisfying contribution of yours to IRMA's programs, and why do you think so?
Okay, so
Maybe
actually,
after you left, I mean, it could also have been much later, but yeah.
Sure. I think couple of things I would still recall. We had an initial query, and there would be many things, but we had an initial query from International Cooperative Alliance Delhi office, ICA, and they used to have an international program done and organized by the regional office, which was ICA Delhi, and they would do that, I think 2 or 3 weeks in Japan and 2 or 3 weeks in India. And if my memory is right, Vaikunth Mehta Institute of Management, Vamnicon, in Pune or some other cooperative institutions were doing that program. Tushar actually, the director at that point in time, Tushar actually asked me if I could sort of coordinate that program, which was a kind of a prestigious program, not just for ICA but for IRMA also, because in a way it was ICA IRMA partnership. A lot of international participants would come and stay in IRMA. IRMA was still not known internationally at that point in time. So I happened to be the coordinator of that program for 2 consecutive years. The first program was done. So there would be a team of national and international participants. I remember we had participants from Philippines, from Japan, from South Korea. So it was logistics, but also content, because one has to design content which would be sort of relevant to them. And then obviously it was done with contribution by all faculty members. And that program continued almost for 15-20 years, if I understand well. Professor Krishnamurthy sort of carried on. He subsequently did that program for a number of years. After I left, I did it for 2 years for certain, maybe 3 years, if I am right in my recollection. So I would think that was a major, if I can say, if you call it takeaway, I would say leave away. So that was a kind of a leave away I did. Another, I think, interesting thing that I would sort of leave behind was actually my PhD research. I didn't complete that while I was in IRMA, and I'll add a couple of lines on that, because when I joined IRMA, I was just a postgraduate, and Tushar had given me a kind of a challenge that if I had to be a full-fledged faculty, I need to publish papers, because I didn't have many academic papers published also, or I need to register myself for PhD, and I need to start work on that. And the whole orientation to Doodh Mandadi got sort of interested me into that topic. And if you recall, many of you would recall, as a kind of sequel to 1991, the dairy sector also was liberalized. And many cooperatives had an apprehension, a genuine apprehension and a fear that now there will be a influx of large number of MNCs coming into the country. They will suck up the dairy market and cooperatives will be out of business. But there was no evidence whether their fears were grounded or not. And then many of you would also recall at that time that the government at that time also understood the pressure from the cooperatives and the farming lobby, and they brought in back through a back door another regulation called Milk and Milk Products Order, MMPO, which was a kind of a semi-control regime again. My PhD topic, I decided in a discussion with my guide from Pune University that this is the right time to study what is the entrepreneurial response to privatization of dairy industry. That was my theme. This could have been, and which was my hypothesis, that here is the government which has opened the dairy sector. Dairy sector is supposed to be a very profitable sector. Large number of players are likely to flood in, and therefore they will damage the cooperatives on one hand, but on the other hand, if you look at their performance, they will be on a growth trajectory right from day one. So what I did was that I did a secondary and a primary research on 26 IPOs, companies which came out with public issues, raised money from the public at large, got listed on Bombay Stock Exchange, and that time you didn't have NSE. And then I just wanted to study a hypothesis of that all these 26 companies will be doing extremely well. I visited 6 of them. At 2 places I was asked to leave. I was not allowed to get in. 2 other companies were briefcase companies. They are just an office in a small room in Connaught Place, etc., etc. Coming back to what I left behind, my thesis got published. I got awarded my PhD. I was happy about that. NCDF, I used my publication. It was not published in a book format. NCDFI, we had Dr. Ravi Shankar at that time as the managing director, Irman, very illustrious Irman of the 2nd or 3rd batch, who was staying on the campus. And I was in discussion with him, getting his advice. But after my completion of the PhD, NCDF, I used my thesis. And this is because there was 2-3 years of work that was done on the ground, but also through secondary literature survey and analysis. And they used this as a kind of a policy advocacy. So in a way, that sort of, that I would see as again a takeaway or leave away as I left IRMA, besides many other things, besides illustrious students like Libby here, who is ED of Gram Vikas. On a serious note, one feels very happy that the students of that time are now your good professional esteemed colleagues. You find them in all parts of the country, wherever you go. And sometimes they say, I was here, I was there. I got sort of harassed by you in your Mac class and you asked me to leave. And then one day you caught me while I was napping in the class and so on and so forth. But that actually is a really a good pleasure that you leave behind a number of students who are no more your students, but who are your professional colleagues in all parts of the country. And one sort of Arun Malik sort of recalled many things which I have forgotten during his field work, and then he recalled almost line by line and name by name. That actually is a beautiful kind of thing that you carry those memory back home. And of course, that philosophical bent I have left behind because I could not carry it with me. That philosophical bent has to be left as it is. It was there, and I hope that continues to also pose similar challenges to many other people. I was staying in C31, so there was a beautiful tree that was there on the lawns just outside our quarter. That tree, I think, somehow got cut because I think it got eaten up by insecticides. So that I very much miss, because last time I was on the campus, because that tree was a kind of a landmark. It was just in front of our window, C31, next to the cooperative store. But yeah, okay, trees come and go, but new trees also take birth. So it's all part of life. Yeah, Karila.
Thank you. On a lighter note, you mentioned a Speak McKay concert. I still think we all need to know some of these gadwads that happen on campus, because I used to be a perpetual sweeper during all these Speak McKay concerts during the time I was there. So I would like you to entertain us with a little bit of that.
Yeah, that blame it on Balaji. Balaji is here. So blame it on Balaji because he sort of passed on the baton to me. I think he was coordinating, he was initiating, or he initiated. He's the kind of father of Speak McKay in campus. And when he sort of got a indirect smell that Ajit is somehow interested in music in terms of listening, he said, Ajit, okay, you be a coordinator. I said, okay, fine, I'm happy to be sort of coordinator. So the burden came from Balaji to me. That's number one. But that's okay. I was happy to share that burden. I had some terrific moments. And one terrific moment was this concert by Vishwamohan Bhatt. I think I shared that in earlier video also. So this musician is that time was an international fame. Had got awarded the Grammy Award, the prestigious US award. And Speak McKay Circuit, they have organized his recital in our campus. So he travels that afternoon from Ahmedabad in his car. As all of you know, the stay is arranged in ETDC, and evening the program is in the auditorium, and we have made enough noise and posters have been put and all that. And I just go around 4 o'clock and check everything is fine. And then I think the program is to start at 5:30 or 6. So around 5:30, I go to the auditorium, and there's this Mahantesh Patil. Many of you would recall this Mahantesh Patil sort of running here and there with that Samai, the lamp. Again, that has to be borrowed from someone. I think from Balaji's or Rajgopal's house, or I think Soman Nair. That task was Soman Nair. So Soman Nair would give that big Kerala lamp. So yeah, and then everything Harun would set the audio system. And then 6 o'clock we have to start the function, and I go in at 5 to 6, and there are 3.5 people in the audience. In our Irma auditorium, there are 3.5 people. I am not exaggerating. So 3 means there's Harun Sharif, there's Mahantesh Patil, the third person is my spouse, and a half person is my son. And you have to start the program at 6. You have to get Vishwamohan Bhatt to the auditorium, walk of 2 minutes from ETDC. I said, what an embarrassment. What an embarrassment that you have a world-renowned, world-awarded artist coming to a small town. Irma का पूरा इज्जत का सवाल था. तो मैं बोला ये कैसे होगा? Then Mahantesh I summoned, because Mahantesh is very much helping as a part of this team, as Salila you were doing. I said, go and get everybody, whosoever is there in the campus, in the hostel, get them out. So he goes there running, he comes back and says, sir, nobody is coming. I said, what has happened? He said, seniors have gone for MTS or whatever. and juniors tomorrow they have a quiz. I bola mar gaya. मैं बोला leave that quiz, and I have said that I have summoned everyone, otherwise everybody is going to get F if nobody is here in next 5 minutes. So Mahantesh again goes somehow and manages to mobilize some 10-15 students out of fear, because I think they were more fearful about me rather than getting the F grade. And then another 10 or 15 trickle in, and then we had Vishwamohan Bhatt sort of performing to a full audience of 25 Irmans. 25 Irmans in that big auditorium of 200 capacity. So that was really an embarrassing moment. But another interesting moment was this Hari Prasad Chaurasiaji's flute recital. Beautiful concert, full house, no need to summon Mahantesh and hostel walas. Everybody is there 10 minutes before. And then we have a good concert, everybody goes back. And Hari Prasad ji and his disciple is staying in the campus in ETDC. So we have a dinner together, they rest. Next day morning, I just take a walk around 10 o'clock just to ensure that Hari Prasad ji has rested and he has his breakfast and all that. So I just walk into the ETDC, and ETDC is full of beautiful flute music. Hari Prasad ji is performing flute recital in his room, or his practice, or riyaz as you would call it. And then I was just spellbound. I just stayed there for about 10-15 minutes. By the time his riyaz was over, I just knocked the room and I greet him and I said, everything okay? He said, everything fine. We are leaving to Vallabh Vidyanagar in the afternoon, but I have one request to you, Professor. I said, yes, if I can be of help to you. He said, मुझे अभी पान कहीं से मिल सकता है क्या? पान, betel leaf. मैं बोला यार मर गया. अभी सवेरे 10:30-11 बजे इरमा में आई एम अ टी टोटलर. अभी पान इनके लिए गुरु के लिए कहाँ से लाओ? So somehow I called some friend, faculty members. Okay, then Jagannath is the place where you get anything and everything. So I cycle or I go with somebody on scooter and Guruji ke liye wo pan la ke liya. And once Guruji gets that pan, betel leaf, he is very happy. He said, "Badhiya baat ho gayi." Then again he takes rest. We had lunch together and I sort of take him to Vallabh Vidyanagar and hand over to the student community there, and they take care of him. So that was something interesting on this Pick Mackey. This terrible moment of 3.5 people in the audience, and audience full, and next day Hari Prasad ji asking, "Thoda pan ka vyavastha kar dijiye."
Thank you so much for that. Let's get back to something more recent from your work. You edited the book Farming Futures, Emerging Social Enterprises in India, along with Professor Shambhu Prasad of IRMA. Many of us Irmans are farmers. I am one, part-time one, or we work with the farm sector. And so my general question would be a little bit on the selfish side. What is your outlook for the sector? And in particular, what should be the interface between younger Irmans and the brick and mortar farming practitioners, whether it is a farmer or someone who runs a very large retail thing, or a smaller cooperative, or a farmer's market, whatever. So you do complain about everything becoming an app these days, and that actual work is all brick and mortar and hands-on and dirtying your hands. So what would you think should be the interface there?
I think that's an interesting question in terms of the times that we are in. I think what IRMA probably taught me and many of us, or probably all of us, is the search for the right institutional model. And I would definitely use the word the right institutional model, because no one model will survive the test of time. I think the cooperatives had their prime time, if I may use that word, in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And many of you would have heard in classroom the cliche that one of the evaluation committee had used, that cooperatives have failed, but cooperation must succeed. It's like one of the 10 commandments in Bible, that thou shall not harm your neighbor. Right? So this is, I think, on a serious note, cooperatives, or what IRMA probably taught many of us, is the search for the right institutional model, where farmers have a central place, and where farmers have a central place in terms of sharing the benefits of the efforts that they put in, commensurate efforts. appropriate efforts, equivalent efforts, and maybe sometimes even more beneficial efforts. And that, therefore, at that point in time, cooperatives were the prime. And therefore, IRMA and the IRMA community and the NDDB and the whole ecosystem stood behind cooperatives in a big way. And then came the MACS, the Mutual Aided Cooperatives Act. Again, that was an interesting time when we were in IRMA campus. We had this cooperative initiative panel, LC Jain, late Mohan Dharia, as well as Shashi Rajgopal and Rama Reddy, and Dr. Varghese Kurian. They were part of this CIP, and CIP was for advocating a Models Cooperative Act led by Brahma Prakash Chaudhary Committee. That Model Cooperative Act subsequently became the Progressive Mutual Cooperative Act. So then from cooperative you move to the MACS kind of a thing. That went on for some time. Again, in parallel, there was an interesting development that was happening in IRMA, of which we were also part. Professor Ajay Dubey had written the first paper on cooperative companies in New Zealand. This I am talking about 1994. Cooperative companies in New Zealand. That time there was no talk about FPC or farmer producer company or nothing. But he did some research, and in the symposium that we had in IRMA, these cooperative companies so whether cooperatives and companies can be sort of brought together. That was this concept, and subsequently you had the ALA committee and the FPCs, and the amendments in the Indian Companies Act came in. Why I'm talking a little more in detail about this is then the new animal that is on the block is this social enterprise. I think the challenge for the farm sector, and when we say we are products of IRMA as faculty or students or managers, is I think keeping the smallholder farmer at the center. Now, as many of you would have written about it, now it's feminization of agriculture. So it's no more smallholder man farmer, but it's smallholder woman farmer. So smallholder man and woman farmer at the center, and creating an institution around these small farmers with the support of middle and large farmers, and ensure that they get the best price for the effort that they have put in their fields. And therefore the slogan, if IRMA has taught me, is return to producer. And what is that return to producer? That ultimately matters. Now coming back to this social enterprise, I think if one is sort of conscious of this fact, one is hoping that if cooperatives have not done well, farmer producer companies are struggling, is social enterprise the new way of doing this? The so-called last mile connectivity with small women farmer and men farmer, but also ensuring that it is done on a commercial principle. So it's not on a subsidy permanently. There are investment made for 3, 4, 5, 7 years, but over a period of 7 years, you have a commercial enterprise, but that is served, or that has mission as the driving force, not money as a driving force. So therefore, me and Professor Shambhu Prasad and a team of 10 authors actually came together. Mind well, we are not the first one. There's a huge dynamism in the country, but probably with modesty, we would say that we are probably the first one to create knowledge, because all the references that we are hearing about farming futures and social enterprises are either UK based or Europe based or USA based. They are nothing based on the Indian condition. And therefore, probably ours was probably the first effort in collecting real life stories and analysis of these 15 social enterprises in Indian agriculture, getting it out, having dialogue with entrepreneurs who have done this, trying to understand their motivation, trying to understand their challenges, and then sort of disseminating that. And now many such entrepreneurs are sort of coming forward, a lot of literature is coming in. So that I would trace as a continuum, and that continuum actually hosts on this assumption that search for right institutional model. That if we really have to take care of small holder, half acre wala, 1 acre wala, 2 acre wala, man and woman farmer, what is the best way to sort of do that? And this is not against corporate sector. Corporate sector will do that, but all of us know that corporate sector will catch low-hanging fruits. Corporate sector will not go to remote areas with half-hectare walas. There you have to have an alternate institutional structure, which earlier was cooperative, which one thought a MAC would do that. One thought that FPC would do that. Probably the government wants to do 10,000 FPCs. So let there be multiple institutions trying to do that rather than saying that one institution is capable of doing that. We are a large country. Somewhere informal groups also would do that. NABARD has promoted Kisan clubs. They are not registered. Joint liability groups are there. Groups are 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 farmers unregistered. But the key focus is place of a smallholder in the entire ecosystem of agriculture, farming, and so on and so forth. And does that farmer get remunerated adequately? I think that is what I would sort of, so that's the connection to the work on social enterprises.
Thank you so much. Prakash. So what we will do now is move over to questions from our participants, from other listeners. And so we have as our opening batsman our good old Murli Anna, Murlidhar. Please go ahead and ask your question, Murli.
Ajit, good evening.
Good afternoon, Murli.
I just wanted you to tell some anecdotes of Ford Foundation. Hi. Ford Foundation, you have spent 5 years there.
Yeah.
And you have really worked with the development sector in a different way. And
Yeah.
your role as a Ford Foundation
Yeah.
project officer was one of those illustrious ones, I thought. Yeah.
Okay. I think Ford Foundation was a wonderful experience in my career. As I said, I have left my heart at many places. So 55 Lodi Garden and the Lodi Garden proper, the big 5-acre, 10-acre Lodi Garden is also another place where I have left a part of my heart. Ford Foundation, I used to joke that I created a lot of enemies because everybody would thought that I'm carrying dollars in my pocket or that money is written somewhere here. So everybody would have expectation for grants, but compared to the size of the problem that we had small grant budget. But what was beautiful was the program officers had freedom. Program officers had a freedom to think and freedom to take risk. I'll just give 3 examples of the work that we did. I was instrumental in doing that. I really genuinely believe in this concept of trusteeship. I was heading the livelihood portfolio. During my stay at that time, we gave a grant for creating a credit guarantee fund to lend to FPCs. Credit guarantee fund to lend to FPCs 7 years ago, 9 years ago. We gave a small travel grant to a leading management institute in South to organize training programs for managers of farmer producer companies 8 years ago. 8 years ago. Managers from Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra went all the way to IIM Bangalore. Let me narrate the name. Professor Trilochan Shastri was the coordinator. He organized a program. He organized a program for managers for training there. We gave a grant to FWWB to on-lend to FPCs because banks were not willing to touch FPCs. Now this I am talking about 9 years. 9 years. So Ford Foundation, in my first month in the office, and I have shared on many platforms, in my first month in office, I have a visitor called Mr. Brij Mohan, a very, very senior person, a retired executive director from SIDBI, and along with him, Vipin Sharma. And they share with me, obviously they came thinking that I'm carrying dollars on my forehead and in my pockets. But they came with an idea that microfinance sector is growing. Why don't we have a publication called State of the Sector Report, which will talk about developments in the microfinance sector. I am talking about 2001. 2001. I listened to them. I thought it was an interesting idea, backed by Dr. Brij Mohan. And Vipin is a very active person in the sector. So we gave a grant, and now you know that State of the Sector Report in microfinance has become a kind of an industry publication. Now that story is not over. Soil report. We thought that enough of microfinance, now it's time to leave and do something else. Then we thought, can we have a State of the Sector livelihood report, a soil report, SOIL. And then again, Vipin came in. He organized a team led by Prabhu Ghate. And then we have a soil report. Now there are many illustrations, but what you say is that we had that freedom to really think out of the box, use small money for possible big impact, do last mile connectivity, do small things, but which have probably bigger impact in terms of pushing the envelope, as they call in US, in terms of doing things that sector needs to be doing, and so on and so forth. So Ford Foundation was a wonderful kind of an experience. And there again, my IRMA, not because I'm in a IRMA seminar here, but keeping the small farmer at the center of activities, I think somewhere that was in the mind all the time. That was there in the all the mind.
The participants, please put it across.
There's Sri Raman and Arun Mullik.
Okay, Sri Raman, will you please go first?
Hi, Professor Ajit. We got connected just recently on the Facebook. Otherwise, at least, maybe my poor networking capabilities, I never got connected with you before. So interestingly, just before we all were going into the lockdown, you had a post on your Facebook suggesting that, maybe your friends can ask you to whether they want an inland letter or a postcard, which you would want to, you bought some postcards and inland letters, you will write letters and post them. So you needed a address. So I sent you my address. It was on 21st of March that I sent my address to you, and I completely forgot about it. So as a matter of surprise, on 19th of June, I received a postcard from you, handwritten and very nice. I was very happy to see that kind of a nice handwriting, which I have lost, because there's nothing like handwritten things now, because everything is typed. So I don't have the habit of writing now. So I was very surprised and very happy to see a very nicely, neatly written postcard coming to me on 19th of June. And I did communicate this to you on the messenger. So I just wanted to share that experience with you. Thank you.
This postcard, can I narrate a small story?
Yes, please go ahead.
So we had one interesting student from the southern parts of the country, really a farmer's son doing well. And one day I see his father along with him in the IRMA campus, a typical farmer looking with a white mundu around his vesti, as they call it. He said, Professor, my son is very happy because this student had done BSc Agri and then came into IRMA. But he said, I have one major complaint against him. Whether there is any complaint about food or canteen or some harassment happening. He said, this boy is notorious. Then I got again, because I was his faculty advisor. That time 5 or 7 students were assigned to each student. So this boy was under my kind of tutorship, so to say. All of you were grown up, but for Naam ke waste, we were faculty advisor. So he said, you make Professor sure that this boy of mine is silent for last 6 months. I said, but he's very active in classroom. He is doing well in his studies. What is the problem? He said, he has not written a single word to me, nor he has called me. And every day when I get up in my village in Tamil Nadu, I start worrying what has happened to this boy. And therefore I have traveled all the way and now I'm seeing him happy. And I'm seeing you and so on and so forth. And but I'm relieved. But make sure that this boy writes to me one postcard every day, every week. And that is your responsibility. You almost ordered me. That time I was a father of a 2-year son, but I couldn't understand what that stress and tension could be. So I took it upon myself. So after every week, if I have a class on Friday, I would hang around in the corridor after the class is over, call the student. Initially, he didn't understand, but subsequently he knew that this was a wake-up call for him to write a postcard on that Saturday. Then after 2-3 weeks of such nasty follow-up, if I may say so, then he says, then on his own, he started reporting to me, sir, I have written my postcard to my father, and the story ended there. But these are small things that we were a small family. So parents had expectations from us, and students also had expectations from us. So his father just wanted me to cajole him, uska kaan pakad ke bolna ki bhaiya aaj likho ek postcard. And I did it for 2-3 times, and I was happy. I forgot his name actually. I forgot his name. Libby, you might recall. Libby, you might recall, or Jaya, you might recall. Your batch or one batch junior.
ऐसे तुरंत याद नहीं आ रहा है, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's an interesting one.
If I see
Sir,
the
but,
chart, I will remember him.
हाँ,
If I
Incidentally,
see,
incidentally, Professor Ajit, only my dad used to write letters to me in postcard. After that, I don't think I've received any letters from anyone in postcards.
oh, but there I
He is
have a
no more.
theory. Sriraman, there I have a theory. There I have a theory, and I'm going a little bit professorial here, no intentions or no plan. I think we should continue to write postcards because government, given every opportunity, government will abandon postcard service. Government will abandon postcard service the way they have abandoned 50 paisa coin. Postcard is still the easiest. Okay, you have SMS, you have WhatsApp, all agreed. But postcard is still the easiest and the most important communication material for large number of Indians even now. Even now. And again, two stories. There's a gentleman, I know a friend in Hindustan Unilever. About 30 years back, this gentleman used to tell me a story. He said that how did Hindustan Unilever, or that time HUL, used to collect data from all those remote corners of the country. They had given postcards to each and every grocery shop. And that grocery shop owner would just deposit a postcard of items sold, soaps in stock, this, that, and all that. And they developed a database of what's happening all over the country vis-a-vis their soaps and detergent. That was their way of primary data collection from hundreds of villages across the country. And this is not a grapevine. This I have heard from a sales manager from Hindustan Lever. And I also have heard similar story from a gentleman in Pune who runs an organization called Rural Relations. Mr. Pradeep Gaikwad. He used to get data from all over Maharashtra till 10 years back. He would distribute postcards to each and every village panchayat, 5 people, police patil, gram sevak, school teacher, progressive farmer, and a bank manager if there is a bank. And ask them about crop, ask them about monsoon, ask them about general health condition, and based on that he has developed a huge rural marketing network called Rural Relations. You can see in Google, and he's a big person now. Rural Relations. Pradeep Lokhande, sorry, not Gaikwad. Pradeep Lokhande, Rural Relations. So postcard has a place, but we must use postcard because if we abandon postcard, the government is going to abandon postcards no sooner or later. Mark my words.
Thank you very much for this, and especially to Sriraman for this very touching idea that came up. Question, we have Arun Malik from PRM 15.
Hi, Professor Kanitker. Nice to see you again in a short interlude. Yeah, Professor Kanitker, my question is, if there is any management education institute in India which has a soul, it is definitely IRMA. How far do you agree or disagree with this?
He's quizzing me now. It's time to repay. Is it? Actually, it's a good question. But actually, it's a good question. But I'll sort of speak a little more on this. I think soul is something that also needs to be nourished. Soul is something that needs to be nourished. You cannot continue to sort of rest on laurels that we did this, IRMA was that, NDDB was this. And then I'll give you a short story which is connected to actually IRMA and NDDB. When I was in IRMA, we had this major program that was launched by NDDB called Cooperative Education and Cooperative Development, CD and CE program. Balaji would know about that. And do you know the reason for that? The reason for that was that, and I will narrate it in 2-3 lines. There was a group of visitors who had come to IRMA, to Anand, to NDDB, and they were taken around and they visited the Doodh Mandali. Many of you would have gone that. We would have gone on several trips, and milk collection was happening all tidily, payments made and all that. And they asked the farmer in the queue, as all of us as visitors to rural areas would ask, that who owns the cooperative? And then it was duly translated. And that farmer pointed out to the secretary who was at the counter, noting that. He said, sir, wo jo wahan baitha hai na bhai, unki ye mandli hai. The secretary owns the cooperative. And then you can, I was not in that meeting, I heard the story, so I'm passing on that story. And that was like a 800 volt shock to the NDDB people who had gone around with this group of visitors, that here you are promoting farmer owned, farmer managed institutions, and here this farmer is assuming, and that cooperative was old one because it's the second generation. So for that farmer, it was not his institution, it was that secretary's institution. So there, then the whole genesis of cooperative education and cooperative development thinking came in NDDB. Mr. S.N. Singh was the lead person. Mr. Waingankar was the person, and from IRMA, I joined their team. Then we had a FAO consultant, Dr. Bela Modi, and some of you would have interacted with Thomas Carter, because that 800 watt jhatka was needed to the promoting institutions and to all the cooperatives, that in the second generation also you have to teach principles of cooperation. You cannot assume that cooperatives once formed with lofty ideas would continue to behave the way they are, and the new members also would have been taught the principles, the ownership, why cooperatives, etc., etc. Then coming back to the IRMA, so therefore what happens to the soul? The soul also has to be reinvented. The soul also has to be reinvigorated, if that is the correct word. And that everybody has to do it. So you cannot say that IRMA at one point in time was this and now it is that. Every 5-10 years, वो बिरबल और अकबर का स्टोरी है ना अरुण, घोड़ा एक जगह पे बैठा है और पान सड़ क्यों गया, और तंबाकू का जो पान था वो क्यों हो गया, ऑल दैट ना, और जो अपना रोटी था वो रोटी क्यों ये गई, जल गई. And the single answer that Birbal gave was, उसको आपने आगे पीछे पलटा नहीं, उसको एक जगह पर रोकने दिया ना. So this आगे पीछे वाली पलटने वाली जो बात है, that is I think reinvigorating, reinforcing, revisiting all that soul. तो वो IRMA के लिए करने की जरूरत है. I think वो IRMA के लिए करने की जरूरत है. Times have changed, student profile have changed, faculty aspirations have changed, connectivity has changed, but of course therefore IRMA has to change. So that soul also has to be sort of kept alive by nourishing, and I think this institutional memory and these stories and anecdotes are one part of that. I am Salila, allow me to share one story, because I share that because these are inspirational stories. I was in a program at NDDB, had many illustrious officers, and I share this story many times. Balaji, you would recall that. We had one officer called Mr. Chotani, Chotani. Mr. Chotani, he was in this spearhead team. Manthan movie you have seen, and therefore this team of NDDB officers going from village to village and promoting cooperatives and farmers not giving a heed to them, all that you have heard. So this particular village, Chotani had visited number of times to promote cattle feed. But farmers there are stubborn. Farmers कोई भी करके जानवर के लिए ये cattle feed नहीं देंगे, because they had their own beliefs. They thought that this cattle feed, if we give to cows and buffaloes, animals will die. एक मीटिंग, 2 मीटिंग, 6 महीना हो गया, छोटानी साहब जा रहे, एक्सटेंशन कर रहे, आउटरीच कर रहे, प्रोजेक्टर लेके फिल्म दिखा रहे, फार्मर्स को कोई बात नहीं हो रही है. One evening in one of the meetings, Chotani actually started chewing that cattle feed in front of the farmers. Cattle feed टेबल पे एक प्लेट पे खड़ा था, रखा था. चोटानी साहब ने उसमें से 2-3 कैटल फीड का जो टुकड़ा था वो चबाना शुरू कर दिया. फिर आधा घंटा चला गया और फिर लोगों को बोला, भैया किसान भाई, मेरे को कुछ हो गया है क्या, मैं आधा घंटा पहले ये कैटल फीड चबाया, मैं मर गया क्या, मैं बेहोश हो गया क्या, ये कुछ हुआ क्या, नहीं हुआ, नहीं हुआ ना, चलो अभी कल से कैटल फीड अपने जानवर को देना शुरू करो. That was the breakthrough in this. So Chotani was nicknamed as छोटा नहीं, ये कभी छोड़ेगा नहीं, पीछे पड़ते रहेगा, he will. So those are the kind of stories that kept NDDB alive. Those stories came into IRMA. Those stories we narrated to students that time, and then this inspiration and the institution. Obviously, some masala would have been added by each passing generation, but that's community folklore. That keeps Manthan कितने बार देखा होगा हम लोगों ने, Manthan कितने बार देखा होगा, and I'm glad that you played that music in the beginning. So Manthan हमेशा देखना जरूरी है ना, वो बार-बार देखने वाली मूवी है. It's a kind of a soul of the institution. तो वही है, वो छोड़ता नहीं वाली जो बात है, वो छोड़ना नहीं है वाली बात ऐसे पास ऑन होती रहती है. So that's about your soul. Salila.
Thank you. And we'll go to Vijay now. Vijay has an interesting question on the current changes in laws that have come up and some, yeah. Vijay, please. Vijay?
I'm seeing his question.
Okay.
So Vijay is asking what are the 3 ordinances and how these ordinances would they do good or would they do bad? Now I am not an agriculturist, nor I am a farmer, or nor I am a economist. मेरा इधर उधर का ही पूरा इकट्ठा किया हुआ ज्ञान है. What is clearly seen is there is a clear polarization. So you have one part of the country or one group of thinkers saying that this is going to be extremely damaging to the farm sector, to the agriculture sector, etc., etc., etc. And there is a corporate, the tech, the agri-tech, the investor, the commodity buyers, and the new generation entrepreneurs, if I may say so. They are saying that this is the 1991 movement for agriculture. I think I would take a balanced position. 1991 liberalization, did it do good for the country? I would say yes and no. And there I am remembered of Dr. Kurian, whose story also I must narrate here before I get into the topic on agriculture. Dr. Kurian, I was the induction coordinator, and many of you would call him as Kurian uncle. So Dr. Kurian had actually a love and hate relationship about faculty members. And he would, and there was one standard joke that he would use or that he would share in every faculty meeting. He said, I don't like people with 2 hands. Then everybody would get chaukan nana ki ye kya baat kar rahe? That does he want faculty without hands? Then he said, you faculty members, he would not use the word rascal, but in his tone you would get that meaning. He said, all of you faculty members are rascal because you say on one hand it happens like that, then on the other hand it happens like that. He wanted only one hand. He wanted only one hand. We say it happens only this way. So therefore his point of detesting the faculty was, faculty would say this on the other hand, but on this, but on that, etc., etc. So I am reminded of him, his kind of a love and hate relationship with faculty because they will not take a stand. As I said, I will take a middle position because you have seen what has happened to onion exports. What has happened to onion exports? And the current government is doing this after 40 years. I come from the state of Maharashtra. Sharad Joshi's agitation for farmers, Shetkari Sangatna, began in Lasalgaon Mandi on Pune-Nasik highway 40 years back, 1980. The first commodity that he chose was onion. The second commodity was sugarcane, third was tobacco in Kolhapur, Nipani. From that time onward, farmers' lobby are protesting against the government, saying that you always come down heavily when prices are rising. Why don't you allow farmers to get a better price? Like, okay, let the onion price be 40 rupees a kilo. Let the farmers get that benefit. But when the onion price is 40 rupees a kilo, you go for imports or you go for curb on essential commodities act. And when the prices have depressed, you do something else. So you are hitting the farmer from both sides. And if you think logically, without taking an ideological blinker, you would think that what is sensed or what is said 40 years ago was perfectly right. When you have milk in plenty, you won't allow farmers to export. And when you have milk in deficit, you allow the farmers to reap maximum benefits. Let milk prices be 80 rupees a liter. But the government lobby would not allow it because consumers have voice, farmers have no voice. I don't want to go political on this. So the recent ordinances have tried to liberalize or liberate what has been actually done or tried to be done for last 30-40 years. There was a recent seminar where they have said that anyway APMC share in the overall market has significantly declined. So APMCs are not an active player anymore. They have actually declined over last 10-15 years. There was a meeting that was done by Kavita Kurungatti and her team in Bangalore, the ASHA seminar as they called it. And now the question is, go back to the IRMA hat that we all wear. Is this going to be benefiting the small farmer? Is this going to benefit the small farmer in getting a better return to his or her produce? My sense is, unless you have storage capacities, unless you have decentralized processing facility at farm gate level, unless you have a cash flow problem that is solved, unless you break nexus between the input and the market, that all we talked about, the market input. So you buy input and against which you procure output at a predetermined price. Small farmer very rarely is going to get a benefit in the overall cake. And therefore, the question is, what is the right institutional mechanism to do that? If an FPC couldn't do that, do it. If a contract farming can do that, do it. If a Reliance or an Adani or a Tata can do that, do it. But my interest would be to ensure whether these ordinances actually lead to some more benefits in terms of price realization for the farmer at his or her end. For that, we'll have to wait and watch. But going at the way when we talk about 1991, country has seen prosperity, but country also has seen deepening inequality. I am in a much better economic position, my friends. I'll be honest to tell that. I am in a much economic comfort zone now after 1991. But hundreds of people who are not like me are actually gone back to where they were in terms of their poverty and income level. So liberalization has been good to only few people, maybe top 5, top 10, top 20%. LPG has done a lot of harm to remaining 30-40% people, and remain mid 30-40 are just about surviving. So the success of this, success or failure or implications of these ordinances, we'll have to wait and watch. And there comes again, Salila, you talked about, IRMA faculty should be in the front. IRMA faculty should go and advocate for the cause of farmers. They should go and find out what is happening on ground. And if you are academician, if good things are happening on ground because of the ordinance, say that. If bad things are happening on the because of the ordinance, say that, because IRMA has the credibility. IRMA doesn't go with a as a partisan attitude. So that's the job of an academic institution. That's the job of an academic institution, to give voice and do research which is respected. So that again brings to Arun your question of the soul. If one has to go back to and revisit a soul, this is the soul.
Thank
Professor,
you.
I think we've really come to the end of this event now. And I really want to thank you. This has been a heavy dose of a lot of ideas for us to take forward. Thank you, Professor Kanitkar. And also thank you to Dr. Jyoti. Is she around still?
Yeah, she is very
Please
much
convey
here.
our regards to her and our thanks. And to all the participants for your time and your generosity of being part of this very interesting event. Now I will hand over to our core team member, Shilpa, for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Sal.
Professor Kanitkar, we missed seeing Parth in mustaches and beard.
Professor Kanitkar, good to see you again. I'm Ravindrajit. How are you?
Yes, yes. I think recently you got promoted as a. I think I saw on your LinkedIn post. I think you are now in a bigger responsibility, I believe.
Yeah, and we had a very nice interaction when you analyzed the Pani Foundation's work, sir.
Yes, in your Navi Mumbai office, in your with Satyajit and team.
True, sir. Yeah. Great, sir. See you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravinder.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kanitkar. Thank you, Salila. That was a wonderful interaction and an eye-opener for many of us. I'd like to mention here that we'll be sharing a gift box with Professor Kanitkar containing pictures, memories, stories of our time with him. So we would love to receive your memories for the gift box, and you can email it to our email ID, which we'll be providing, displaying it in the end. And finally, I'd like to a big thank you to all the participants, to professor and family, to members of the faculty who were present, to Salila as panelist, and to all the PRM and non-PRM participants who attended, our core team and the communication support team. We will now be sharing the details of Professor Kanitkar and the core team in case you want to get in touch with us. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Stay well, stay safe, and hopefully somewhere we will meet again in person, because this virtual is virtually soulless. We need to meet in person, shake hands, give a big hug, have a cup of tea without social distancing, all that we need, and hopefully we'll be able to do that sometime in near future.